So as a lot of you might know, my hobby to my hobby is building motorcycles, and cafe racers particularly. About a year ago, last fall, I decided that I needed to build a workbench specifically for the motorcycles I was working on. Now I looked online and couldn't find a lot of resources for building a decent wooden motorcycle workbench, so I made the decision to do this as a video here for my YouTube channel. Now there will be plans available as well, so if you want to check those out, make sure to check out the link below. With all my pieces cut, I marked out my side rails so I would know exactly on which side and where exactly to line up all my pieces, similar to framing a wall. Now it was a beautiful day, so I did do this all in my driveway, but let me quickly flip to just a bit of an animation of the workbench so you can kind of see what I'm working on so it just doesn't look like a pile of 2x4s laying on the ground. And right now I'm working on the base for the bench. Now if you're lucky enough to find 2x4s that are perfectly straight, I would also suggest going and picking up a lottery ticket. I took the time to pre-drill all these pieces because I was going into the end grain and right on the edge of the wood, so I definitely want to make sure that I wasn't splitting my material as I was drilling down. And these are just 2-inch standard deck screws. Make sure you have a framing square when you do this. The 2x4s, again, are not that straight, so you definitely want to make sure that you're lining everything up as best as possible. And yes, my shop dog was hanging out that day. With the top and the base put together, I put those aside so I could get in position to be able to attach the legs. Now, keen eyes probably already noticed that the top and the bottom are slightly different. The top actually has an extra set of rails, and I did that specifically because this lines up fairly close to where the tires and the majority of the weight of the motorcycle will sit.
So did I.
With an extra set of hands, it definitely makes assembling this base a lot easier. I was using clamps to attach my legs, and of course the framing square, but having my wife hanging out and just helping me make sure this was all square made the work go a lot faster. And I definitely made sure to put enough screws in all my corner pieces. At this point, I was able to roll the bench to its other side, so I was able to attach the legs on the opposing side. After chasing the last of the screws down the driveway, I put in the supporting legs, which this makes a corner brace of 2 2x4s in each corner. How's the saying go? Work smarter, not harder. With all my legs attached, including the center legs, I moved my sheet of plywood into place. With the plywood squared to the workbench, I screwed it down just so I would actually have a secure base to, well, cut the other half of the plywood off. With the base attached, I used my track saw to cut off the end of the plywood. And then just to the length, I used a chalk snap just to be able to draw a line, or I guess find a line, between each of the edges on the front to back of the workbench. Now hey, if this is your first time visiting my channel, I really want to say thanks for checking out the work I'm doing. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, I would super appreciate it. Now with my chalk line in place, I started cutting my material to its final size. And right about here is where my camera died. Now after needlessly blowing sawdust into my camera to get a dramatic shot, I grabbed the other half of the plywood and spun it into place to be able to attach to its other half. Maybe its better half. I don't know, I didn't ask. Anyways, so when I attached the second sheet of plywood, I made sure to align my screws in such a way where they wouldn't run into the screws I had already put into the first sheet of plywood. And well kids, here's that moment of truth. The first time actually rolling the motorcycle up the workbench. And I honestly, well, number one, shouldn't have been wearing flip-flops. I should have been wearing real shoes. But I should have had someone else there with me to be able to get this up. It went up easier than I thought, and I've done this several times since, and it gets a lot easier because you just learn where to put your body, and having an extra person again is a good idea. Now with the motorcycle up on the bench, I was actually able to attach these hooks. This is so I can actually strap the motorcycle down safely to the workbench, and I had some scraps left over, so I decided to use those to make a bit of a wheel chock. So this is just something that centers the wheel so it doesn't roll forward. It for sure doesn't hold up the weight of the bike, but I just thought it was a good thing to add with the little bit of scraps that I had left. And speaking of scraps, this literally was everything that was left after building this bench. So I'm really happy with how efficient I was able to be with materials, especially with the cost of 2x4s. Now the underside of the bench is amazing and a great spot to store any kind of bins or any kind of oils or other fluids that you have. And this was probably one of the best parts of the bench other than its actual working height. It seems silly, but storage is at a premium, so it's always easier to work up. And of course, what workbench is not complete in a shop without adding stickers to it? And of course I had to slap on one of my own. Now, like I said, this workbench is just such an amazing height to be able to get at the motorcycle and do the work that you need to do without crawling all over the floor. I find that I can stand up perfectly straight and do whatever work that I need to on the bike. And again, the storage underneath is just such a game changer in my little 2-car garage. So welcome to almost a year later, and you can tell that it's actually a different motorcycle. We'll talk about that maybe at another time, but yes, the bench has been working super good. The actual surface, even using the particle board that I did, has been super durable. I know it's not gonna last forever. I kind of built that within mind. It's an inexpensive wood, so I'm able to change it out if I really have to. But I'm super happy with the amount of storage that I get underneath the bench, as well as just the space that I get, and the actual working height is bang on. I am just under 6 foot. 5'11 3/4. And for me, this is the perfect working height. I even had someone come by a couple weeks ago to buy some parts from this old motorcycle, and he was so impressed with the height and just being able to move around this so freely that he actually built his own. So if you guys are looking to actually build your own, I do have plans available, as I mentioned earlier. They are linked below, and that's a great way for you to support my channel. Thanks again for watching this video. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing, make sure you're following along on Instagram. And of course, if you're not subscribed already and you made it this far, I'd super appreciate that. Take care. See you on the next build.